Hi. I'm here to share with you some info on uterine cancer, the statistics. Cervical affects about 16 per 100,000 women per year and kills about 9 per 100,000 per year. Approximately 80% of cervical cancers occur in developing countries and worldwide. In 2008, it was estimated that there were 473,000 cases of cervical cancer, and 253,500 deaths per year. I debated for years with uterine cancer experts at international conferences in Europe, Asia, and the US about where cancer in situ of the breast and cervix were real cancers or not. The short version, in my opinion, is that cancer is cancer. If it is localized and dormant, it is still real cancer. It has just not spread. From my research, these cancers have a propensity to spread. They may not if the tumor environment is healthy. The cells that are dominant cancer, or healthy cells that then get damaged DNA, then these cells mutate to cancer. Both these types of cancer are very apartment to spread if the microenvironment is toxic. Other factors that cause cancer activation are cells that are inflamed, acidic, hypoxic, and with chemical imbalances, like exposure to heavy metals, hydrocarbons and other carcinogens. Like Bob Beck's book, The Body Electric, the electrical charges of the cells and cell environment are important determinant for health or disease. It is chemistry that determines the electrical components of the body electric. What all this means is that there are tumor microenvironments that cause activation or development of cancer cells or allow it to stay inactive. In carcinoma in situ, cancerous cells are limited to the surface area of the cervix. Smoking has also been linked to the development of cervical cancer. There are different ways that smoking can increase the risk of cervical cancer in women. These are due to direct and indirect methods of inducing cervical cancer. The direct way is getting SIN3, and an indirect means of developing this cancer by smoking is that it can lead to human papilloma virus, which can result in cervical cancer. There are about 4,400 deaths in the US each year from cervical cancer. The average age of a woman with pre-invasive or very early cervical cancer is 38 years. The average age of invasive cervical cancer is somewhat older, from 45 to 55. And, indeed, it probably takes about 10 years for a pre-invasive early lesion to become a more serious invasive cancer. The known causative factors that predispose a woman to cervical cancer include early sexual intercourse, having multiple partners, more than 5 pregnancies, and a history of sexually transmitted diseases such as syphilis or gonorrhea. Another known risk factor is if one's mother took day while she was pregnant. Human papilloma virus. Probably the reason that early sexual activity and frequent partners predispose to cervical cancer is that women with that history are more likely to encounter viruses that can cause cancer, like the human papilloma virus. Certain types of these viruses cause or trigger cancer, other types of HPV may not. Human papillomavirus infection appears to be a necessary factor in the development of over 90% of all cases of cervical cancer. HPV vaccines. HVP vaccines are effective against the 2 strains of this large family of viruses that currently cause approximately 70% of cases of cervical cancer that have been licensed in the US, Canada, Australia, and the EU. Since the vaccines only cover some of the cancer-causing types of HPV, women should seek regular pap smear screening. even after vaccination. Different types of cervical cancer. About 90% of all cervical cancers are squamous cell carcinomas, and these start out on the surface cell lining. Less than 10% are adenocarcinomas. Adenocarcinomas can be more difficult to diagnose, but are treated in much the same way as the squamous cell carcinomas. The survival rates are similar. There are also several different subtypes of cervical adenocarcinoma. These include the most common endocervical type, the endometrioid, clear cell and adenosquamous carcinoma types. There are also two rare types called small cell carcinoma and cervical sarcoma. In patients who are treated conventionally, these two have worse prognoses than the others. The arrival of Gardasil, a vaccine against 4 of the most prominent strains of HPV, may eventually make an impact on the incidence of cervical cancer. However, much remains unknown. By neutralizing the 4 most prominently associated strains of HPV, we may in fact be opening the door to one of the 100 or so other strains of the virus that until now has not shown pathogenic tendencies, but may possibly develop them if the ecological balance of the cervical environment is shifted by the influence of the vaccine. While the average age of women suffering from the cancer that spreads deeper into the cervix, penetrating into the tissues and other organs aka invasive cancer, ranges from 45 to 55 years. The known factors that cause a woman to contract cancer of the cervical are many, including sexual intercourse at an early stage, having more than one sexual partner, getting pregnant more than 5 times, suffering from STDs in the past, etc. Studies have related the fact that women who take day while expecting may be prone to such cancers. The reasons why having sex early in life and sleeping with multiple partners leads to cervical cancers, because the women then become prone to the HPV virus and these help to trigger the cancerous process in the body. Almost 90% of the cervical cancers that occur are squamous cell carcinomas which start forming on the surface lining of the cell. Lower than 10% are adenocarcinomas. Here, the glandular tissues are in question and they occur more commonly. Plus they are difficult to detect, but treatment for both types of cervical cancer is the same. Also the rate of survive, depending on the stages, is similar for both. Like other, cervical cancer too has subdivisions. There is the commonly occurring endocervical type, the endometrioid, clear cell and the adenosquamous carcinoma type. However, there are 2 more types, but these are very rare, the small cell carcinoma and the cervical sarcoma. Through the traditional treatment methods, the result is by far the worst for these 2 types. Fortunately, with Gardasil, a vaccine that can fight the HPVs, may play a vital role on the occurrence of cervical cancer in the coming years, yet, there is a lot to discover about it. The vaccine will help to neutralize the certain common strains of HPVs. We need to learn more about HPV and its role of cervical cancer. Thanks for watching. Please click the link in description for more information.